WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have another single cask, this time from the independent bottlers in Germany called Liquid Madness. I know both of these people. Sebastian Büsing calls himself the Spirits Alchemist. Theo Schnabel calls himself the Cask Hound. And they together have now created their own label called the Liquid Madness. We are traveling the globe in search of brilliant booze. And this is the Spirit Adventures find number 5 in Kentucky, USA. All right, so at the moment they have 6 different things out there. The very first one was a Spanish whiskey. That was from Andalusian in Spain. It's called Libra. And it was a first fill PX sherry butt. Number 2, if I remember correctly, was from Denmark. Yes, it was. It was in Jutland in Denmark. It was from the Ferry Lochen distillery, and it was an Oloroso sherry hogshead. Number 3 must have been the... Oops, that's fine. Number 4. So number 3 was the Seven Seals. Yes. Von Lindwalden from Switzerland. It's called Seven Seals. It's a peated single malt whiskey. I never know where that stuff was made from, Seven Seals. They're now made in Ireland. They used to be made in Germany, but the company's from Switzerland. So Seven Seals and I don't really understand everything going on there. Number 4 was from, I'm sorry, I only have 3 more left. All right, was from Israel. That was number 4 from Tel Aviv. It was M&H. And it was in a Cabernet Sauvignon French oak cask. Number 5 is now our whiskey, the Secret Distillery from Owensboro, Kentucky. Owensboro sounds a little bit like Lawrenceburg, Indiana. It's Green Rivers. And we have number 6 was a German, and it's called the St. Kilian, and it was fully matured in a Eisbock beer cask. All right, so these are always single casks, 0.5 liters. We have here a price of 67 euros, so we're talking about 130 euros per liter of alcohol. Ouch. And this has 298 bottles and 58.8% ABV. So what did they do? They somehow got their hands on some, I'm going to call the word juice. I don't even think they bought a cask. I think they just bought a tote of Green River, and they put it in different casks in Germany. So this was distilled on the 30th of November 2018. This was bottled on the 17th of October 2022. So it's just missing by a few weeks 4 years. So it is a 3-year-old whiskey. And it says here it was first of all matured in a bourbon cask. Yay. And then it was put into an Ex-Islay bourbon barrel finish. The taste, mighty fine. Don't you just love it when people use those type of just descriptors? Mighty fine, with an unusually peaty and very tasty flavor. So selected, imported, and bottled by the Liquid Madness in Germany. All right, so now I think I've explained this. I'm going to explain 2 things first of all. I'm not a big fan of peated bourbons. All right. Now, peated bourbons do have. This is not as unique as some people might want to think. There have been, for example, let's go over here. If everything goes right, I will be with my partners from the UK N10 Bourbons importing over here to Germany, Kings County from Brooklyn, New York. They have a peated bourbon. Yay. So we have, for example, from the Liberty Pole Spirits in Washington, PA. They combine the peated malt with Bloody Butcher corn for its bourbon. In Detroit, they have something called 2 James Spirits, and they make the J. Riddle peated bourbon. And in Michigan, we have the Grand Traverse Distillery, and that used to be called Islay Rye. Now it's called Isles O Rye. There must have been some type of letter from the SWA, Scotch Whisky Association. And it's made with 80% local grown rye and 20% Scottish peated malt. and bottled and bond. Not even that. If we go over here to New Riff, they actually had something where they were making, for some reason, don't know why, peated malt, and then they switched back over to bourbon, and it took some of that back set, and they put it into the bourbon, and I was like, why not? Let's try it. And it was a subtle peatiness that came through. And so they'll have to do it again, but it's going to take 4 years for them to actually get the stuff up and running so that we can have that. And I'm sure there's a lot of other peated whiskeys out there with different approaches. Now, first question of the day, what peated bourbons do you know of? All right, now, as you're probably aware, how did the peat smoke come into this whiskey? All right, this whiskey. So what happened is, this is Islay, so let's assume that we actually have peated malt from Port Ellen Maltings. I was there in May of 2022, and I drove by quite a few times, never made it in. They don't have a visitor center. I contacted them a few times, no reply whatsoever. Ignored me, Diageo, ignored me. I'm so unimportant, that's true. All right, so what happens is you take, of course, your barley, and you bring it over on a big ship in this case, and you put it into the malting center. First of all, you soak it, and you let it germinate a little bit, and then you want to stop that germination with using heat. You put it out in a tumbler so it can grow a little bit, but all right, you want to stop that germination with heat. And so what you do is you use, in this case, a lot of heat. Could be from oil, could be from gas, could be from coal, could be from wood, could be for anything. And also here to get those ppms, those phenolin parts per million, we add peat to the mix and have some peat smoke going up there. And those phenolin actually attach themselves to the outside, the husks of this malted barley. Good. So now you have as much peatiness as possible on that malted barley. So the first thing you do is you crush the malted barley. You might lose a tiny little bit of phenols there. Then you mash the malted barley, which means you seep it in water, and you take the water, and the rest of the crushed barley's left someplace else. And so you lose the ppms there of the phenols. And then you ferment it, put it in the washback, and you let the yeast eat at it a little bit. And the containers and the walls of if they're not stainless steel, might absorb a little bit of that phenols, those ppms. And then you distill it. And of course, not all the ppms, not all the phenols go up through the line arm, back into the spirit. You have the low wines, you have the high wines. And then after you've distilled it at least 2 times, let's say it's only 2 times in Islay, and then you put it into a barrel. And the barrel absorbs some of those phenol, some of those ppms. And then what's left in the spirit, when you bottle it, you water it down usually because you don't buy it at cask strength, often the case. And then what's left in that cask after the malting, the mashing, the fermentation, the distillation, and the maturation, what's left in that cask is then departed back into this bourbon by pouring that bourbon into that Islay cask. So this is secondhand smoke is what I call it. All right, so this is not something that actually was in the grain itself. It's secondhand smoke. Some people like secondhand smoke, at least with their whiskeys. As a distillery owner, I might actually like it for the one case that I don't have to have peat in my distillery, because it's very difficult to get rid of that peat reek is what they sometimes call it in Scotland, that smell, that aroma. It takes a lot of cleaning and a lot of work. All right, so what they did is they took basically 3-year-old bourbon from Green River and brought it somehow, probably in a tote over to Germany, put it into an Islay cask, probably a Lefroy quarter cask, and then let it set. How long? Weeks, months? I don't know. All right, and that's what this is. So all of the peat here has been taken back out of that cask, has been absorbed by this liquid, and is now in this bottle. Whew. That's a long way to do it, isn't it? I mean, the way the people are doing in the States, they just take peated malt, and most bourbons have malt. Just put 5%, 10%, even 20% peated malt in there. Boom, you got it. but your whole distillery has that peated moment going on in there as well. It takes a little bit to get it out. Now, what I have here is an alternative. It's not the same. Well, maybe it is. I don't know, because it's secondhand peat, right? So what I'm going to do is I took the bourbon I just found at the moment that had the closest ABV, 58.4, 58.8. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this. Wait, before I pour this, I'm going to take something else that I have here that's from Laphroaig. I'm going to take, sorry for all the people that like Laphroaig, I'm going to take a cask strength Laphroaig from batch 13. It is at 57.9, and I'm just going to add a tiny little bit to my glass. Now, you do need to add a little bit, all right? So what I'm going to do is if you have like let's say you have a double dram that's going to be 4 CL, less than a half of a teaspoon should be enough, all right? So I'm just going to pour a little bit in here. Good, that's enough. And then I'm going to put the wild turkey on top of it. I'm going to give it a little bit of moment to mingle, and then I'm going to try the two and tell you which ones I like better. Now, over here in Germany, this is not even 40 euros for the bottle. All right, it's 0.7 liters. All right, 7. We have 0.7. In America, you still have 0.75. This is 0.5. All right, so 80 euros for 0.5. 40 some euros for 0.7. Much better value for money. 3 years of age, 6+ years of age. 4+ if we believe the label. If we believe what everyone else says, at Wild Turkey, probably around 6 years of age. All right, so now I've made my own peated bourbon. When I started doing my YouTube videos 6 years ago, almost going to be 7 starting in May, I heard about a lot of people in America, they would actually make their own peated bourbon. They take Wild Turkey, they take Booker's, they take Elijah Craig, they take something higher proof, and then add maybe a teaspoon of Ardbeg, or a teaspoon of Kilchoman, or a teaspoon of Lagavulin, or a teaspoon of Laphroaig, or a teaspoon of maybe peated Buna, or a teaspoon of whatever else, Highland Park, Ben Romach, whatever else you want to add to it. They would just, Bowmore, just add that. And my tip of the day is, if this idea interests you, and you are a peat head anyways, and you like bourbon, what I would recommend is you take a bottle of your favorite bourbon with a little bit more proof, Wild Turkey 101, Rare Breed, whatever you have. And if you have maybe 4 or 5 different Islay single malts with different types of peat. Bowmore doesn't taste like Ardbeg. Ardbeg doesn't taste like Lagavulin. Lagavulin doesn't taste like Laphroaig. Laphroaig doesn't taste like Kilchoman. Kilchoman doesn't taste like Buna. What else do we have up there? Adnaho we don't have yet. And Coile. Coile, I had to remember all the distilleries we visited. Coile doesn't taste the same as, for example, something from Buna that's peated, and so on and so on. Is you take maybe 4 or 5 glasses, you pour yourself a nice little dram, you add a little bit of the different types of peated, 5 different peated distilleries to those 5 different glasses, and you try to see which one matches best. My theory is that, for example, Booker's works better maybe with something else than Elijah Craig does. Or maybe the Rare Breed works very, very well with this, but doesn't really work with that. It clashes. So I do think there are going to be different types of like a symbiotic connection where it's just going to create some type of synergy. And there's going to be like, oh, this is good, but this is wow. And there might actually be the moment where you go, oh, this is good and this is good, but together it's not. And that's the art, not the science, the art of blending. I don't know about you, but often in my head, I can take, for example, I can take cinnamon, I can take cardamom, and I can take, for example, cauliflower and go, oh, that actually works. I can take the exact cinnamon, the cardamom, and take broccoli in my head and go, oh, that doesn't work. All right, so most of the time I can get flavor profiles in my brain. I can put them together and see what's going to happen before it happens. Like, oh, it's going to be nice. My wife kind of goes, it can't work. I was like, yes, it does. And she goes, oh, have you tried it before? I said, no. It's just like my brain is able to combine some stuff. What it can do is it can't take peatiness and great bourbons and match them together and say that's what's going to happen. That's something where it's going to be an art form, I personally think. And I think the art of blending is something that is not duly respected enough and not done enough. All right, I, in Germany, at least in my YouTube channel, have declared the first half of 2023 to be the year of blended malt scotch. Not blended scotch, not Johnny Walker, red label, but blended malt scotch. So we take single malts, we blend them together, no grain, and then we have to see what it is. And we're going to do 6 months of blended malts. Different live streams, different blind tastings. We're going to have you whiskey tubers create their own blended malt scotch, and then we're going to test it, and the winner is going to go in the final. And I'm really, really excited about what we can do, because I often think that at the moment, with inflation and money and being tight and so on, we're going to actually be creating some of our own magical moments. And I think there are some good bargains out there to be had for blended malt scotch. By the way, I hate the term. Yeah, blended scotch I like, single malt I like, but blended malt scotch, it's just not what I like to talk about. All right, good, but I like the category. Vatted malt, that was good, yay! But no, we had to turn into the blended malt scotch instead of just blended scotch. Yay. All right, so on the nose, I always get this secondhand smoke. I always get like a petrochemical moment going on, almost like a plastic. Now this is actually, wow, I get the Laphroaig, I get the sweetness of the wild turkey. I personally think Laphroaig and wild turkey goes together fabulously. I don't like peat in my bourbon. I'd much rather drink it the way God created it in Kentucky. But if I'm going to manipulate it, I'm going to add something peated to it. Personally, at the moment, I don't think there's anything better out there than Laphroaig for the wild turkey. I might be wrong. Prove me wrong. Write it down in the comments. Cheers. Mm. Mm. At the beginning, there's a little bit of the sweetness in the bourbon, and there's the greenness of a 3-year-old bourbon. And then there's the peatiness, that plastic peatiness. For me, this could be secondhand smoke from Laphroaig, or it could be secondhand smoke from Bowmore. I don't think it's an Ardbeg, I don't think it's a Lagavulin, and I definitely don't think it's a Kilchoman, and so on and so on. And then that sweetness kicks in a little bit. I do not think they should have left it in the cask any time longer. The peatiness is more than enough to pick up most of the peatiness that peat heads love. But for me, the base product here, that 3-year-old Green River, is just a little young. I would have hoped, I would have expected, I would have myself tried, even though the price is higher, to have chosen maybe a 6-year-old product from, or even a 5-year-old product from a different distillery. Wilderness Trail, Birdstown Bourbon Company, MGB. All right, so I would have went for that instead of a Green River. But hey, 4 years ago, Green River, we had, I think it was with the Whiskey Broke in the UK, the Germans were able to buy some casks with them, and now they're coming of maturation that we can get them over here. So, all right, so not perfect. It's a C minus for me. Value for money is a D minus for me. A 3-year-old product for 80 euros, and it was 0.5 liter bottle, illegal in America, by the way. Not my really cup of tea. But if I go over here, just as a comparison, right? So, on the nose, it smells better, and on the palate, it tastes much better as well. Good ingredients make good cocktails. All right, good. So, interesting. Would not make it myself, would not drink it myself, but if I had to drink it, I would not refuse. Good. 2 things. Number 1, my idea. If I am a distillery, please listen. I might be wrong, but this is my idea. If I was a distillery, what I would do is I would take my own distillate, and then I would actually buy from a different company. I know, from a different company, peated whiskey. It could be a single malt, it could be a bourbon, it could be peated grain, anything. Not the casks, the whiskey. And then I would blend my whiskey with the peated whiskey together. Do I have a straight whiskey? No. Do I have an American whiskey? If it's from America, yes. There are different places that make peated whiskeys. All right, not many, but some do, and more are. And then it's just a whiskey. Then I could actually buy a peated from Ireland at the moment. They have more than enough peated whiskey from Great Northern, at least in the European world. And then I would blend those two together, and then I would say, hey, my opinion is this whiskey, you have the peat, you have the bourbon, and it's much better than secondhand peat. Personal opinion. All right, so I'm not 100% sure about the legal categories here. I thought it would be, if it's all from America, it could be an American whiskey. I'm happy with that. And if it would qualify as a straight whiskey, and yours qualified as a straight whiskey, it could be a blend of straight whiskeys as well, which is also a category at the moment that is booming. All right, so I would love to see that. You could take I don't even know if anyone has made a malted whiskey out there, which means at least 51% malt and peated, and have it straight and mix those two together. All right, that's the one thing. The second thing is don't forget to write. Please write your different combinations of bourbon with peated whiskeys. Some people, I know, and I'm finishing, have actually decided they know their blend. They say, hey, Wild Turkey and Lafroig goes so well together, so I'll just drink as much out of this bottle that I know that I need. I'll fill the rest of the bottle up with Lafroig, and then I will drink this bottle as if I would any other bottle. I would somehow have maybe a nice little like an X on there, or maybe a smoke bomb or peat or whatever. I'd put a sticker on it so I know this is the peated one. But I know some people have actually created their own peated bourbon bottles. And instead of actually working every time in the glass, is it this much, is it that much, and do it 3 times in the evening, they just make their own peated bourbon bottle, and they're more than content. They're like, okay, at the end of the night, it's time for peat. Boom, and we're going to go peated bourbon. And then they might go up to Octomore, but at the beginning, that transition from bourbon to Octomore would be a good little segue, would be the peated bourbon. I hope I gave you a lot of ideas. All right, so this whiskey itself, the experiment, yeah. The result for me personally, all right, but this combination with this was much better than expected. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for liking, subscribing, sharing, telling others about this crazy guy over here in Germany, giving you crazy ideas of what you can do with your bourbon and your peated whiskeys. That's the way things go. All inspired by Kentucky Bourbon Whiskey, Owensburg, USA, the Liquid Madness Company in Germany. See you soon. Bye-bye.